I'm alive. He's alive. They live. Watched that movie on TV recently. They live. An awful lot of interest and symbolism in the background the whole way through that movie. Just so happens it was on TV a lot recently on some of those channels that show the same things over and over and over again. Same movies are shown over and over for weeks. So I watched it. It's not the first time I've seen it, obviously. I actually quite enjoyed the movie in itself, but there's a huge amount of stuff. Very cheap movie as well. Very cheaply done. With a lot of symbolism in it. If you're looking. Yeah, it's raining very slightly. But won't even make me wet. It's more like a mist. Just a bit stronger than a mist, I'd say. So I started the wheels of the universe in motion, trying to make my will incarnated. My will be done on Earth, because that's where I am right now, in my physical avatar. One of my many aspects that happens to be communicating through this portal in this now moment. But I'm definitely starting to make improvements. I had to get out and do a lot more stuff. And I've been really busy. And of course, it's getting me back on my feet again, forcing me to get over the anxiety, which I was already going in the right direction anyway. I was already going in the right direction. Got through all of that recent tough life experience without relapsing on loads of medication, which I normally would do at all times. During something like that, I just say, fuck it. I take loads of medication just to get through it easier. But I didn't do that this time, because I don't want to go through that hellish scenario I've had for the last year ever again. So I obviously learned my lesson, didn't I? My father was on a particularly strong painkiller, and he had to stop taking it. And he got off that within 5 days or something. Well, over the last nearly 2 weeks, I suppose, in all fairness. He was in the hospital setting, obviously, but they actually got him off the medication. And I'm only on a tiny dose of Xanax. So it can be done, you know. Okay, he was obviously in a very controlled environment. The medication started attacking him, attacking his body, like an antivirus or whatever. So he had to stop taking that medication. Simple as that. And they got him off it. He's off it now, like, obviously in a very controlled environment. They've got really good techniques. They can get you off medication like that very quickly if they really want to. If they really want to, they can do. So I've done my weights before I came out. As far as things are going myself, pretty good really. Everything's going in the right direction. I need to do a bit more reading, get myself back into focused on a bit more reading than I am doing. I've been doing a lot of thinking, processing, loads of stuff I've already read. Now I'm at the stage I need to start reading a bit more, you know. It's all a process. It's actually quite cold out now. And I was out earlier on, it was quite nice. It's like 10 degrees Celsius. Earlier on, which is quite nice this time of year. But now it's probably like -1. So yeah, interesting. Just going around checking this stuff. It's all locked and stuff like that. I've also started the ball rolling over my housing situation. In the last week, I've been doing quite a lot of stuff. Hadn't really had these conversations, you know, with people that I really should have had conversations in my own family about this stuff. So yeah, I've already made a lot of moves in connection with all of that stuff. In the last week. And stuff that needed to be talked about. Talked about a bit of it today with my father. Verify where I stand and so on. At least everybody knows the situation. There's no confusion. Everybody knows what's going on. It needs to be sorted out, you know, before he croaks. So it's got to that kind of point. It's got to that point where stuff needs to be done actively, and need to take action, you know, all of that kind of stuff now. as much as possible. Take action now, like, before it becomes a homelessness situation. And everything's going to be done so that everybody knows what's going on. I don't want anyone talking around. Nobody should be talking about anybody else's back when it comes to this, and everybody should know the situation when it comes to the inheritance. It's divided between the 4 kids, and nobody should be thinking that I'm trying to stay here and when he dies, I'm going to try and stay here and not go. I never intended on doing that in the first place. But what I am going to try and do now, while he is still alive and while I still have a roof over my head, now I'm going to try and do everything I can, which I've already been doing up to now. But now it's become more of it needs to be done. It's not like there's time. It's not like there's absolutely loads of time and it could be done in 10 years, 20 years. I need this sorted out ASAP, as soon as possible, for anyone who isn't in the military. I need it done now, that kind of idea. So yeah, I need to start doing what I can now, when I still have a roof over my head, like, to get it sorted out. And I make sure everybody knows the situation and where I stand. I don't expect I'm going to get much help of anyone, but I'm going to do everything I can from my side. From my perspective, I'm going to do everything I can to get it sorted out. Go to wherever has to be done. Put in as big an effort as I can now, in all different ways. Get as much advice as I can get about what I can do. Is there any kind of cheap options that I would be able to avail of? Is there cheap options? My life is just kind of passing by. The last 3 years have been totally a waste of my life. And I might as well not even be alive for the last 3 years. Just non-existent. I just live like a prisoner, one day after the other, doing pretty much the same thing every day. Kind of in a trap. And that can't continue either. But thank God, in a way, that I am starting to get stronger. The anxiety is starting to subside. And that will, of course, I'll go through an entire phase now where that totally disappears. And it might disappear for 1, 2, 3 years, maybe even longer, where I don't really have any anxiety and I can live normal. And it's in that time period, which is coming now, that I will be able to do anything I want. I'll be back to my full normal self, you know what I mean? So anything is possible in that time. For the last year, I couldn't really do anything, and I knew it. But now I know, after the last couple of weeks, that I'm pretty much back to myself again, even under extreme stress and pressure. I've still stuck with the low amounts of Xanax that I was taking. Still stuck with it, and I never felt the need to to take a booster. There was one day when I took a booster, but I didn't even feel the need. It's a good idea. My doctor used to tell me anyway to give yourself every now and again. Just take one extra one every now and again. It's a good thing just to let your body know. You get the confidence that it actually works, kind of thing. So it's a good idea to do that, not to totally deprive yourself. So yeah, every now and again I do take one extra, for no particular reason. I did that, but there was no reason for me to do it. Like, I just periodically will take an extra one. Might be feeling one of those days where I'm a bit low or something, that maybe I took 2 half ones and it felt like they weren't really doing anything. So, you can't get yourself going to do all the normal stuff that you need to do. So every now and again I will take an extra one like that, every couple of weeks, basically. And it could be a couple of months sometimes when I feel the need. Like, some days you take 2 half ones and it feels like you didn't take anything at all. It does happen every now and again, and that's usually a sign that there isn't enough in your blood, there isn't enough of it to be comfortable in your blood system. So it's a good idea every now and again just to get the levels up a little tiny bit, and then all of a sudden you feel okay again for another couple of weeks, and it might happen again. You just go by how your body feels, basically. But yeah, I'm not like the ostrich sticking his head in the sand anymore. I'm literally actively talking to people about this problem, including my father and other people, to know exactly where I stand and try and get as many people on my side, helping, and make sure that all the people in the family knows that I'm trying my best to get out of this situation. And I really don't intend on staying here. I couldn't imagine myself staying there for the rest of my life. The house is like a morgue. It's absolutely freezing. Like, 6 months of the year, it's just as cold in there as it is outside. Like, we won't be able to have fires in the next 10 years. And that's the only thing that keeps you warm in there. So whoever ends up living in that house, a lot of people are going to start dying from the cold in Ireland. All the new houses are built. There's no fireplace. There's no fireplaces allowed in all the new builds. So in the future, people won't even be allowed to have a fire in their house. And a huge amount of people are going to start freezing to death, especially older people. It's the European Union. It's all the small people's fault. Having a fire in their house, it's your fault that we've got so-called carbon taxes, trying to blame all the people with their small fire in their own house, as if they're the problem. Like, it's obviously not being caused by the giant businesses who pays all their money. They're not the problem, of course. the people who actually pump out all the carbon dioxide, the giant corporations and the giant businesses. One of the biggest problems with carbon dioxide in Ireland now, and uses up most of our energy, is actually those data centers. We've got a whole lot of those data centers in Ireland, and it's actually using up most of our power supply. So I would imagine that is the biggest polluter it's the biggest cause of pollution, is the data centers in Ireland, because the amount of energy that it uses, it obviously means that's the biggest polluter. But that's also bringing in some of the biggest money into the country. So they're trying to hit all the small people. You can't have a fire in your house and you're all going to freeze to death. Like, the only way my father survives is because he's got a fire. If he didn't have that fire, he wouldn't last a week. I suppose they do know that. I reckon they do know that, but we want less mouth to feed, I suppose, wouldn't it? You get old, you're not paying taxes anymore, so they'd rather you dead, so they won't have to pay your pension. That's the basics of it. You're too old to work. Another interesting thing I saw there now, the British Army are starting to do a kind of Ukraine-style military thing, where people can be brought back into the service up to the age of 65. So just a big war comes on, which obviously they're trying to start for the last, I don't know, well over 20 years. And they feel like they're nearly there, they're nearly on the way to this war, that they can bring people back into the military. This is the British Army now. I saw a whole lot of headlines about this. People obviously aren't going to be happy. I had a contract in my time. They could only call me back after 10 years. After I left, they could call me back for 10 years. But after the 10 years, they can't come near me. And that was my contract. I literally had a contract, and I thought that was bad at that time. But if you join up now, they can, just say a war starts, they can bring you back in up to the age of 65. You're almost like an old man at 65, and they will bring you back in. People can't. They literally can't do what's expected of them at that age. It's a fucking joke. They're doing it in Ukraine already. I know they're doing it in Ukraine already. Like, they're just bringing in people of all ages, basically. And they can't do it. If you're that age, you really can't do it. Like, it's fucking nuts. It's hard work. It's a lot harder than people realize. As well as, there's other people shooting at you, and it's a real war. It's not just playing around. It's hard enough when you're only training. The different story when everyone around you is getting blown to bits and you're getting shot at all the time. Not everybody's cut out for that, So that's what they're trying to bring in Britain at the moment. Anyone who joins up now can be dragged back in up to the age of 65 after they leave, if a big situation starts. So I don't think it's advisable to join up with that kind of contract. I'm sure that should put a huge amount of people off. I know they have a very small army in Britain now as well, compared to what they used to have. Nobody wants to pay is really bad. If you do go to a war or something, a lot of them end up homeless, and everybody sees this. You see loads of the veterans in Ireland and Britain and other countries. they're not being looked after. They're very badly paid when they are working, and when they do come back after fighting in wars and stuff, a very large amount of them ends up on the streets, and nobody gives a fuck about them. And now they want to be able to drag them big fellas back in up to the age of 65 to send them out to the front in a war that they don't even know anything about. So yeah, the way soldiers have been treated in my lifetime, in all countries, in the Western countries anyway, loads and loads of veterans end up on the street or homeless of some kind in a car. All the usual shit, depending on how bad their circumstances is. It seems like it's the norm. A very large percentage, the largest percentage of homeless population in most countries are ex-military guys. And of course, they look really tough because of the job that they used to do. They're totally hardened up people, and they find it really difficult when they become civilians, back into civilian life. They look so tough, they almost look like prisoners, you know what I mean? They have that hardness, raw hardness about them because of the job that they used to do. And then, it's very difficult for them ever to get jobs, or in most cases, some people do really well and some people don't. A very large amount of, because of how hard they look, they're not able to get employment. They're not able to get places to live, because you go to look at a place to live and you've got a shaved head and you're totally full of muscle. A lot of these guys look totally hard, and the landlords are terrified. So a lot of these guys, but they're perfectly fine, but they look really rough, you know what I mean? Because of the job, it turns you rough. You're going to look like that. They're also usually fairly big to look after themselves. Very fit, very intimidating without trying. Yeah, but it makes it very difficult for a lot of them kind of people to get an apartment to live in because they look like prisoners. They have the same kind of look, but they're not. But they have that prejudice against them, as if that they are that part of society. I think that's a big part of it. People in the world, almost everything is based on appearances at the moment, how things look on the outside, but there's never any looking about. And the thing is, a lot of them are actually some of the best people you could have. They're some of the best guys that you could have working in jobs, but just because of their appearance, and that's all caused by the job that they did. And that stops them getting on then when they become civilians, when they come back into the civilian world. Some guys find it hard to adjust back to civilian life as well, for obvious reasons. They didn't realize how big of an adjustment it was going to be. I adjusted fairly well, but I know a lot of guys who didn't. I was willing to go and work on building sites and all of that kind of thing, even when I was drinking, because I needed the money. But I did always find it quite difficult to get places to live because I look hardened. That's because of the job. That happens. You're going to look really hard and tough through the job that you are actually doing, like constant physical exertion. Having people roaring and shouting at you all the time and whatever. You just start to look and quite often they are the best type of people, but people just judge them on their appearance. It's the basics. So you've got really good people there that were really good in their jobs, but because they're judged on their appearance in civilian society, they get treated basically the same as if they came out of prison, as if coming out of the army was almost like coming out of a prison. And I reckon that's a big part of why so many of the guys end up homeless, because they do look warrior type, and very intimidating. So people say, I don't want that guy living in my apartment. He's very intimidating. And then they can't even find a place to live, even though they're perfectly decent people. Finding jobs is quite difficult for the same kind of, depending on what your rank was and so on. Some people just have really hard difficulty adjusting. Some people get PTSD. Some people can end up with anxiety disorders like myself. Some people just have a really bad depression when they come back out, and they also look. So yeah, it's a spiral where there's really good guys, and they are really good guys. They had to be in the military in the first place. They wouldn't have lasted in there if they weren't fairly good for what they were doing. And it is fairly bad. You see so many of them homeless, I've got time now, so I'd be putting in a bit of work, whatever I can do, and make sure everybody knows the situation as well. I've been getting, I'm actually got the wheels turning, instead of doing nothing. I have a whole lot of different things I am actually doing now, and that makes me feel like I'm actually taking action, and it gives me more confidence in my situation. I'm actually doing something. I'm trying to take action to get the things sorted out as much as possible, and there's nothing else I can do other than that. Talk to family members about it and that kind of thing. Everybody's trying to give me a bit of don't be getting worried about it and don't be getting anxious about it. We'll make sure it's all sorted out. But it's easy said that, but there's no sign of it being sorted out yet. But I have been told that quite a few times by a lot of people in my general family, like aunts, uncles, that kind of thing, that it'll all work itself out. Nobody's going to allow you to be out on the street. You've done all the good stuff for the last 16 years, and everybody can see that. Aunts, uncles, outside the basic circle of the family, they're all, giving me that extra confidence. Don't worry about it. We'll make sure that it's sorted out. It looks like my father is pulling through as well. He's pulling through that little episode he went through there recently. Which is a good thing. He's on a good bit of stuff at the moment to wean down off, but he is going in the right direction. And just gives me, I'm happy in a way as well that it's finalized, that I definitely won't be living in this house, and I never really did want to. I'd rather, my own new start somewhere else. So that's what's going to be worked on. I'm going to do all I can over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be very persistent about it, and I'll go to all kinds of different people about this. explain everything that's been going on recently. It's getting to a dodgy point where I could end up being in a bad situation, and I know I have it all thought out the way I'm going to have to talk about it. So yeah, I've got the wheels turning on all of that stuff, and I'll be working on that in a big way now. At the moment, nobody's telling me anything about where I stand, but that's not good enough anymore because it's becoming more of an emergency. It's getting to that emergency state. I can't really hang around any longer, kind of thing. So I need something more solid than what I've been getting. But I'm going to leave it at that for the moment because I'm running out of time and I should be only sticking my videos for like 20 minutes. So I'm not coming on as much as I was either. I was quite busy there for the last week, as you can imagine. And I'll be busy for the next couple of weeks as well. But I'll try and get on every now and again just to do a quick video about anything in general, I suppose. Good luck.